What's up, everybody? This is Scott Leese here with my good friend and partner in Surf and Sales, Richard Harris, and welcome to the Surf and Sales podcast. We are joined today by the founder and CEO of RepVue, Ryan Walsh from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. How's it going, Ryan?
Great. It's going great. Thanks for having me, Scott, and Richard as well. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys.
Yeah, we're really excited to talk with you today and get into some of the details about RepVue and what you're working on. But first, want to thank our sponsors that make Surf and Sales podcast happen and help us produce. We're going on almost 200 episodes now this year alone, which is, I don't know if there's like a record or something we're chasing, Richard, but we're getting close to 200.
It is emotionally for us.
I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
Our sponsors are Vidyard and Gong.io and Lead411.com. And they're great partners, great pieces of sales, SaaS tech stack, and I hope everybody gets a chance to check them out. So, Ryan, tell everybody, who you are and what RepVue is all about and who you're selling to and give folks some context for the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to start with a little bit of my background. It's a little different than a lot of salespeople now that are floating around out there. So first of all, I came out of school in '99, so just dating myself there a little bit. One of the interesting things about that time that people, especially if you weren't in the business world in '99, Richard, you were, Scott, you maybe know.
I was in like grammar school or something like that.
No. Ryan and I graduated high school in '95 and graduated university in '99. We're the same, Ryan.
So we're on point there. Okay, good.
So what he's saying basically is I look old as fuck.
Yeah, you're gonna pick up what I'm putting down. No, I just scoped it on your LinkedIn, Richard. It's all good. Otherwise, I would have never guessed it. But so 99, what people don't realize that didn't come out or weren't in the business world then, that the internet boom was insane, right? I mean, it was just different than what we've seen in these, what people call a bubble now is not the same. And I wanted to get on board with a startup. That was one of the things I wanted to do. I did. And I joined a startup I joined in March of 2000 and it was sold in June of 2000. It had been in business 10 months with minimal revenue and sold for $180 million.
Oh my God.
What was it?
It was, the name of the company was auctionrover.com. And it was basically an aggregator of auction websites. So you take, kind of like, during the internet boom, there was 100 different auction websites, 200, 400 different auction websites. You go to this site and you would search and it would aggregate all the results and you would get to see all the results in one place. And it was acquired by a company called GoTo.com, which changed their name to Overture and was acquired by Yahoo. And Overture, GoTo.com was the original search engine. Before Google was the big search engine, it was GoTo.com. And they wanted to get into auctions and they made a bet. And then 3 months later, everything fell apart. The good news for us is our bills were paid for the next year and a half while everybody else went out of business. If that acquisition didn't happen, it wouldn't have, I would have been looking for a job pretty soon thereafter, I'm sure. In any case, the two founders of that company then acquired most of, a portion of the assets back in late 2001 and started a new company called Channel Advisor. And I joined that company on day one as essentially an enterprise rep sort of role, AE type role in 2001. And I stayed there for 17 years from day one until the last 6 years. I was VP of sales for a couple of years and then CRO for a few years as well. We were a public company, grew from 0 to 120 million or so when I left in top line. And so it was for me, it was great. I didn't, I wasn't doing sales before that. Fell into it. Enjoyed it more so than enjoyed it.
What was your degree though in like, and how did you go into sales?
Yeah, so my degree was economics at UNC here in Chapel Hill. I still live in Chapel Hill now. And when I started at this startup, right, you just take a job, right? They always tell you, hey, if there's a rocket ship, just get a seat. Don't ask any questions, right? Just get on the ship. And so I was doing a number of different things, but basically what I was doing in day one was evangelizing sellers. You could call it sales, but it was free. We weren't charging for it. And so it's sort of sales. And then my first real job in kind of the new formed formal organization. When we spun back out as a new company called Channel Advisor, I was really I kind of started the first professional services team, and I was a manager of a small professional services team. And as an aside, the CEO and some mentors of mine there said, why don't you try selling a couple things, try to take a few of these accounts. And it, I think part of it, I had the in-depth knowledge from running the services team, and then I just enjoyed it. And I enjoyed this every aspect of selling I enjoyed. And so after about a year or so, I moved exclusively into a sales role, and over time some sales management roles and leadership roles, and grew from there. So no, never thought of it. You hear it all the time, I'm sure both of you guys, right? Where somebody says, I wasn't planning on getting into sales, right? Nobody really is, right? But then, but the country needs millions and millions of salespeople, but nobody plans on going into sales. So
That's
it's kind
right.
of funny.
The country needs millions and millions of salespeople, but nobody plans to go be a salesperson, and they don't teach it in school.
Right. And you can make a whole lot of money doing it, right?
Makes all the sense in the world.
Right.
Richard, Ryan basically has had the exact opposite career as me. He like gets his first job, hits a home run.
Right.
Then he goes to this next company, stays there for 17 years.
That's right.
My God, right? And then you went into business for yourself for a little bit, and now you've founded RepVue, right?
Yeah.
Wait, I want to dig in though.
Yeah.
You came out looking for the startup. You got excited about it. You hit a home run.
Luck, by the way, right?
That's all right. No, there's no such thing as luck. It's just you were prepared and you made the right choice. But then you stayed somewhere 17 years, which is the opposite of wanting to be at a startup, right?
Right.
Like year 2 or 3, were you getting itchy and antsy? By year 7, were you like, oh my God, or was the money just that good? Which is fair, like it's in sales, right? Like,
yeah.
But 17 years, like, is just, unheard of.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it wasn't the money. I mean, as any reasonably well-performing salesperson, I made decent money, but it wasn't, as a rep, it wasn't like life-changing or anything like that. It was really more about the journey, which was, we started with zero revenue, basically, right? We grew from zero. So you think about the transitions that happen, and we were an early SaaS company. We were selling software as a service. The company is middleware that connects merchants to Amazon and eBay, essentially, and Walmart and other marketplaces. Just to give you background on that. But I stayed because I was, and I tell people this all the time, you're not loyal to companies, right? Nobody's loyal to a building, right? You're not loyal to a piece of equipment. You're loyal to people, right? And there was a couple people, particularly our founders, that I was very tight with, very loyal with. They knew that I was working really hard for them. They had my back, and I was loyal to them. And I watched this grow.
Pause right there. Because I think this is important, particularly if you're going into the startup world, right?
Yeah.
What are the values that those founders had that fostered that loyalty for you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and these are values that I bring forward with the way I operate, which is, fairness, number one, treat people fairly, integrity. And integrity is something that is non-negotiable, right? It should be for sales leaders, any leader, doesn't have sales, whatever. Integrity, accountability, right? And transparency. Those are
let's dig into those for a second, right? And I want to get to RepVue a little bit, but
yep.
What example did you see in those leaderships, or have you transformed into your own around integrity? Like, what was there, without naming the name of a company, was there like, you know what, we're not going to operate that way, or a certain situation? Like, I want to get people concrete, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's less about other companies that you see for me, and it's more about nefarious things that borderline questionable from an ethics standpoint in terms of how people operate. And that can happen in sales organizations. It can happen outside of sales organizations.
Yeah, but give an example of that. Like, where was like, oh, this was, we had this decision to make, or they had this decision, and here's what they did.
Yeah. So treating, poor use of company resources, without getting into too many details, right, is one example, right? Poor use of company resources. So I don't want to go into too many specifics, is one such example. Another such example is questionable behavior in the actual workforce, and treating people and how you which is something now that I'm going back some years now, right? But things that were happening, and by the way, this is not a blight on the company I work for or any specific company, but seeing things, and then there's action. You can either take action or you can't take action, or you don't take action. And if you take action, that sends a message that the way that you treat, the way that not the way that you as a leader treat people, the way that people on the team treats other people is important as well, right? So when you talk about that kind of crosses the boundaries of integrity.
I've seen it, right? I've had leaders at previous companies be misogynistic or drug or alcohol use, and it was reported up through HR, and it was sort of like it was handled, but the behavior never really changed, right? And we're not accusing any one of your companies of doing those things, but I think that's the stuff that's changed. And I think fortunately for the Me Too movement has come forward. It's sad that it's necessary, but I'm glad that it's here. As well as just in general, the partying of salespeople, and like constantly, it's not even salespeople, but anyone, like it's just excessive. And I think you and I've seen it a ton in Silicon Valley, right? Like, it was in the, around literally the turn of the century, you handed these kids, $5 million, $10 million. And the first thing they did was throw a funding party, right? Now you see kids getting, $5 or $7 million, and they're afraid to spend it. Right. It's, which is, that's growth and maturity in the industry, which is good. But I want to make sure we at least mention those things, that those are the things that mean good leadership and integrity. What about accountability? Like what does accountability mean for you as you look at yourself and or working with others that you advise, or places you've been?
What's interesting about accountability, people, many times you hear that word and you just think, okay, so if you're a sales leader, the accountability means if somebody's not hitting their number, then you move them out of the business, right? That's actually not really how I think about it. I really think about it as me. If I'm a sales leader, I'm accountable to the entire team, right? And so to use that example, right, if somebody is, we've all hired tons and tons of people, right? It's hard to get, nobody's going to ever bat 100, bat 1,000, whatever it is for hiring. It's just impossible, right? And that's part of what's going on at RepVue. But for accountability, it's not so much like, hey, I'm going to hold you accountable to hitting your number. It's I am accountable to building a team, right, in the best way possible and delivering an environment that is enabling you, my team, to succeed. Sure, part of that is if there's people that aren't working out, then we have plans for that and a process for that, and not everybody's the right fit. But I think accountability too many times is thought of as, hey, you're going to be accountable to this number, right? And come hell or high water, you're out, or that's not how I think about it really.
So I'll paraphrase and tell me if I'm wrong, but in your mind at leadership, your accountability as a leader is to build the right infrastructure to train your team, to coach your team, to give feedback to your team, honest feedback, so that they can achieve the number. Is that a little bit of what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. And accountability means something different at every layer, right? Accountability means something different to an SDR than what you just described, right? Accountability is, hey, you've got some metrics, maybe they're call metrics, whatever they are. Like, let's be accountable to that. Let's be accountable to showing up on time every day. Let's be accountable to the basics.
So does accountability mean effort?
It depends on the position, right? I mean, I think use the example of an SDR, right? Highly successful SDRs, many times the trait is they're high activity. They put in a lot of effort, right? And so, however, as a sales leader, different sales leaders look at it in different ways, right? What are the results, right? And I've said this before, like pre-pandemic, if you're hitting your number every month as an AE, right? I'm not maybe parse this from AE, move to AE from SDR, but if you're hitting your number every month, I don't care where you're working, right? Like I want you to kind of update Salesforce. There's some minimum bar things that you need to be doing, and you need to be, but does accountability mean effort? Yeah, sometimes it does, but not. I don't care as much about the effort as much as the results, and building and giving you a framework to succeed and hit those results, right? And I'm going to assume if you can do all that with very minimal effort, then either you're just a complete, Jedi master, or maybe maybe the goals aren't set up right.
No. Is all this kind of dovetail into what I presume is the passion that you have around kind of flipping the script and protecting sales reps and helping ensure that they're treated well and going to the right places, and that birthed the idea for RepVue?
Partly, yes. So where you're going with that question really is, and I've used this before, like when you run a sales team, right, your objective is to, and we just talked about this, can I build an environment where people can succeed, right? That's my job, right? I need to create an environment where people can succeed, right? And help people succeed, right? I don't, I tell sales managers, sales leaders, don't worry about your number, just do whatever you can to make sure they have the opportunity to hit theirs, and you'll be taken care of. And so that's, the largest team I ran was, 230 or 40 people, right? Okay, that sounds like a lot, but there's millions and millions of salespeople. And I look at RepVue as an opportunity to do that at a much, much greater scale, is to deliver an environment for people where they can really succeed and hit their highest potential, because they're finally in an organization that's a good fit for them. Right. And so it's more like at scale, we can do what I enjoy doing as an operator, a sales leader, which is help people succeed. That's kind of that tie there.
So reps who have worked at a particular company, they leave reviews of the company for other people to check out. How do you know that the reviews are, fair, unbiased, not, how do we avoid the this is a bullshit Yelp review type, situation, or the bullshit Glassdoor review, which is all, something that people think about, I believe, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. That's why we don't do reviews. We hate reviews. We don't think they're good. And we don't think they're, there's not a good scalable way to, with Glassdoor as the example you used, right? You, as a sales rep, you go there and you read a few things, you read a few more things. Maybe there are salespeople doing it, maybe they're not. You get a feel. A lot of people don't like it. It's probably 47% people that are disgruntled, 47% HR told me to do it, and 6% might be legitimate. Of that 6%, some are salespeople. So we don't do reviews. What we've built at RepVue is, and the original impetus for it and was, why are so few people hitting quota, and why is attrition so high, right? Like people are going 11 months. What's causing this, right? And there's obviously an issue with the fit for the person and the company, and sometimes it's one person's fault, sometimes it's the company's fault. And I zeroed in on one key element to the fit, and that is the interview process, which is an exceptionally one-sided. It's a huge transaction, so important for people to get to pick the right job. But the information flow during this interview process is one-sided. Okay, Scott, you're going to interview me for an AE role or whatever role, right? Hey, HR review resume, HR phone screen, Scott phone screen, bring them in, panel, Scott interview, another person interview, director, VP interview. Maybe there's a test, maybe there's disc, maybe there's whatever, role play. And then you say, hey, Ryan, we got 6 minutes left in the interview. Do you have any questions for us? Right? That is the common experience that salespeople have, right? And 6 minutes, well, what should I ask? I've got my basic little, posted of questions. And it's just, the information flow is so unbalanced, and it results in people just, hey, I won the interview, I got the job, but do you really want the job? Is that the right job for you? So what can we build that can deliver transparency? And the original impetus was actually, if I have more information about companies and better information, and more information and better information about people, we can match people and companies. And so we've got a very unique rating process. To your question about reviews, a user spends 2 minutes, they enter information about 3 different things. What is the company doing well and not doing well? Structured. Some compensation data and analytics, structured. And then the third part is a little drag and drop exercise that tells us what they care about, what's important to them in their career. Those 3 kind of sections of the ratings process in total take about 2 minutes. And once you submit a rating, then you're signed up, you're a user, and you can access the data that we've aggregated. And what our job at RepVue, our job is to take all these ratings, aggregate it together, and deliver a highly visually appealing showcase page of sales organizations so that so that a user can consume the data on these sales organizations and make the best decision for them. What's going well? What's the company doing well? What are they not doing well? Compensation data and analytics. And I'm happy to answer your question about fake reviews and that sort of thing too, because we've got that kind of pretty well figured out.
One thing I'm thinking about right now is like, how much are we relying on a rep's self-awareness in order to put accurate data in the system and make the right choices for them? Is one of the things that I have found in my 20 years or so of sales leadership is people don't know themselves and they put themselves in harm's way. And it's like, somebody who moves really slow takes a transactional sales role. Somebody who wants to move 1 million miles an hour puts themselves in a big long enterprise sales role. Someone who likes lots of training goes some place that doesn't provide any training.
Exactly.
I worry about the need for people to be self-aware before they can get maximum value.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
It's really interesting, right? So yeah, no, you're not wrong. And I think that's a big part of some of the issues around attrition and things like that is people haven't really sat down and internalized what they value in their sales career and what's important to them from a career standpoint. So to use your example, right? When I think back of people that attrited from my sales organization, I think, maybe we were too technical of a sale and maybe our training wasn't right for them. That's not their fault. It's not necessarily our fault. It's just a fit issue that maybe we didn't do a good enough job vetting that in the interview. But also the people, the sales professionals are not considering that. It's actually one of the reasons we put during the ratings process, we have, you literally have to drag and drop our 7 ratings categories first and stack rank them first to last. Base comp, incentive comp structure, product market fit, professional development and training, inbound lead flow, diversity and inclusion, and culture/leadership, senior leadership. So those 7 things, and people think about it. I get emailed all the time, like, man, it's an interesting, I never thought about it. This is helpful for me to think about it. And then the original concept of RepVue is when you do that, when you submit that, we know what you care deeply about. Well, here's 5 companies that perform really well in the things that you care most about. And you know what, here's some other great companies and maybe they're struggling in the areas you care about. So those aren't matches for you. And that was kind of the original input.
Maybe if nothing else too, this is a bit of a forcing function to make those people go through that thought exercise.
Exactly. So I have a question though. I want to combine what Scott said and what you said. Scott, as you listen to those things that Ryan mentioned, right? Super powerful, super high level. What are 3 things you would add to that checklist that people should force rank? Because Scott's actually, Ryan, you don't know this, but Scott's very good at hiring. I've worked with him, I've seen him, and he doesn't use recruiters because frankly, he really is better than them. No offense to any recruiter who wants to sponsor us. We'd love to have you.
Just close that channel down quick.
So probably on 10% of your market. It's okay.
Yes. Scott, so what would be 3 things you'd be like, hey, that stuff all matters, right? Diversity, inclusion, culture, those kinds of things. But what would be 3 things to drive that individual awareness that you wish would be part of that stack rank?
Man, I need Ryan to repeat his 7 categories so I don't.
Yeah. And I'll repeat them. And there are a couple, and we always balance adding more with brevity. But the incentive comp structure, base compensation, and to be clear, these are sentiment scores. It's a 1 through 5 star sentiment score. So incentive comp structure, base comp, culture and leadership, which we have a little description of each. It's more senior leadership, not your manager, because that changes a lot. Product market fit, inbound lead flow, diversity and inclusion, and professional development/training.
Man, I don't know honestly, Richard, I think all the things that I could come up with to add would fall into Ryan's categories as sub bullets and subcategories.
Yeah.
Right. And my reason for asking is and it's very different, for us, because look, we've lived 20 years in sales, give or take, right? But if you're trying to help assess a 20 something first sales job, second sales job, third sales job, where they just don't have the life experience, do you need to get more granular? Do you need to go and say those things, right, Scott? I was about to call you my son's name, Riley. Scott, of prefer a fast sales cycle, long sales cycle. I'm good at a long sales cycle. Where's that differentiation for you?
Well, the differentiation is in the specifics, and I'm sure Ryan, in his process and through his product gets into those specifics, but it's in the details. So I might hear his category of professional development or career development type of things. Like, okay, well, what does that mean? Right? Mm-hmm. Does that mean I have a quick path to promotion? Does that mean I have access to senior leadership to, interact with and get mentorship from all day long? On the comp plan stuff, like, it could be really, really granular. Like, you get paid commissions on the 30th of every month, or you get paid commissions, 90 days after the contract gets signed, that kind of stuff. Like, those little kind of details for every category that he's talking about. That's the kind of coaching that I would want to provide to early kind of sales reps. I'm sure you get into that stuff, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, we have a definition of each one underneath it, right? And it has to be, I mean, we have, like, one of the questions is average order value, average sale price. But I think to just taking a step back is, if you look at a page on our site, like, there's certain pages you can go to without registering, like Salesforce is one of them. There's a little filter you can see, preview ones that are not gated. But you look at a page on our site, we want a user to be able to go there, and we're still kind of working on this, but it's like, when you look at the page, if you're interviewing for that company, then you have a roadmap of what questions you need to ask. Okay, so, hey, look, they're a little weak on, this company's a little weak on, to your point, that, like, the incentive comp structure. Okay, well, then dig into that. Get a copy of the incentive comp structure. Ask about it. Make sure you understand before you take that job. Like, they're getting some poor ratings on incentive comp. Well, just make sure that you've dug into that and you're comfortable with that, or whatever the category is that's that might be weaker than others. And so that's a core part of the experience for reps is to just it's all about transparency, just extreme transparency. We have it. We're kind of getting to some scale now with some of the larger sales organizations have 70, 80, 90 ratings. So this is not, it's material.
Yeah, it starts to become statistically significant, right?
Yeah, and we only share. So when you when you add a rating to our site, that company doesn't go live on our site. We won't even publish the page until there's at least 7 unique user ratings for the company.
So there's how many?
7.
7. Okay.
Yep, 7. We have just under 250 company sales orgs published.
I want to pull us out of this. I hope the listeners I hope they found it useful, not a product pitch, because that was not the intent. But and I don't think we pitched it, but I hope people do go check it out. Like, I think it's needed in the ecosystem of helping reps, right, find the right fit for them and the right roles and jobs, and equally it's valuable for the companies because they need to find the right people and stop fucking shit up. I want to come back to pulling out and talking to you about sort of this CRO role, right? This role, as best I can tell, started about 5 years ago ish, and is now it's not. I wouldn't even say it's mainstream. It's just sort of now becoming a mainstream thought process, but not a mainstream execution. Mm-hmm. How do you define the CRO role? Because I feel like it's still very fluid at the moment. And I'm just curious from your experience, like, what are the things you think defines that role?
Yeah. Company has a sales leader they want to really keep. Let's throw a C in front of his title. Let's try and keep him a couple more years. I mean, all right. That's what it is. Right. I mean, I think I got the CRO title maybe, I don't know, 2014 ish. And, like, at the time I was like, okay, hey, maybe my next role will be not VP of sales, but SVP or EVP of sales, whatever that is. And then it's like, oh, here's CRO. Okay, cool. Yeah, so we'll keep them a couple of years. But it really does vary, right? So as a VP of sales, right, you kind of have a pretty well-defined lane, okay? And then the notion of a CRO in theory, and in my take, should be that lane expands and captures something else, right? But it's not well defined as to what that is, because in some organizations that can be marketing, right? In
That's
some
what I was going to
organizations,
ask you, is what those other lanes are, and they're
yeah,
different for everybody. Yeah.
So it's really one of two things, right? If you think of sales as acquisition of the customer, it can be two things generally. It can start all the way at top of funnel, and so CRO may be marketing. Although with marketing, you generally have a traditional CMO role, right? So that that may or may not be. And the other side of that is it contains full customer life cycle. So then whether that's support and professional services or account management, or however the company is structured, but a CRO role generally will take the acquisition and expand out either front or back and add on ownership of customer through entire customer life cycle and renewals and pro services, CS, customer success, whatever, or sometimes upfront marketing. And I think if I'm advising companies on that, I'm really thinking less about titles up front. Don't say we're going to have a title and then we're going to find people to fit that that title. It's more about find the best people you can, and then give them whatever responsibility that they can effectively lead. Whether that's sales and marketing, whether that's sales and renewals, or whatever that is.
Now, so who do you think should be what is your ideal? Is it a marketer being CRO, customer success?
Can a VP of marketing be an effective CRO? Can a VP of CS be an effective CRO? Does it have to be a VP of sales?
I'm going to show my bias here, and I'm going to say that if you're running the sales organization, you need to have some pretty good experience selling. Okay. And I think if I'm going to tack on one of those two things, sales and marketing, or sales and renewal success, I would probably tack on the latter, sales and renewal success, and I would leave the marketing piece to, like
that's interesting, because that's the least common one I find. I find the most common one is somebody gives you sales and marketing and leaves the account renewal piece out of that triangle.
Yeah.
So, but I actually agree with you.
Well, so let me say this: if you if somebody said, "Hey, Ryan, here's a great CRO role, take this job," and it involves marketing, first thing I'm going to go do is go find somebody who knows marketing, and could run whether that's a VP of marketing, whatever it is, because that's not my strong suit. Like I mean, and that's admittedly so. And on the renewal side, that's in customer success, a lot more of a comfort zone, for me. And when I was running the organization, things kind of flipped back and forth. I never really owned much at all of anything related to marketing, but account management would fall under revenue for the most part, and not necessarily customer support, technical support, but kind of the renewal stuff would hit us too.
Couldn't the VP of marketing, though, who gets promoted to the CRO role, just say, well, the first thing I'm going to do is hire a VP of sales or director of sales, because that's not really my wheelhouse? Can't they make the same argument in reverse on us?
They certainly could. I just don't think you're going to see that as super common at companies, unless you get to just an enormous organization where it's your leadership positions are 100% about moving chess pieces around from a people standpoint. If you're not, if there's still some level of execution, I just don't see it as common for a head of marketing to take over the sales organization. But yes, you could make that argument. But some people, like maybe me and you, would just argue against it.
That's right. That's right. I've been having this conversation lately. Richard and I have a good friend who was a CMO and is now the CRO, and I can think of at least one other VP of marketing who's actively lobbying for CRO role?
I think Daryl Prail's the exception, right? Over at VanillaSoft, our friend Daryl, he was a marketing guy, but he's taken over the CRO role. I'd love to hear. You should have this debate with him. So maybe that's our next, do a live session of who should be the CRO role. Right? We'll put Ryan as the captain of one of the teams.
Now, regardless of who's in the role, the expected lifespan of this particular individual is like, that of a butterfly or a caterpillar, right? Like you're gone in 18 months or so, whether you're VP of sales, CRO, whatever. You lasted way longer than that, right? What do you think allowed you to beat that average by so much, and why do so many people fail to have longevity in that particular role? This is the question that's being asked of everybody, I think.
Well, there's a few different reasons. Okay, so number one, it's not all on people see that and they think, well, they just get in there and they get beat up and then they get pushed out, right? Yeah, okay, sometimes that happens, but also they get in there and they get 50 recruiter calls a week, right, with the next big shiny object that's in front of them, and there's not as much transparency at that level even as well, right? So
that's very fair. Yeah,
people are jumping around too, right? It's not just So that's one side of it. I will touch on the other side of it though too, which is grandiose expectations. Like you see these the tenure that you're talking about, right? And we're probably thinking these growth companies, right? Venture capital back, these growth companies, and people jump. Well, you take that 10 million, that 40 million, whatever that money is, and there's an extreme expectation of growth almost at all costs, right? And it causes the reps at the street level to be pawns and move them in, move them out, not working, get another batch, move them in, move them out. And the same could be said for a VP of sales as well, right? They're not, like, let's get somebody else in there. Board, the investors, let's get somebody else. We got these 6 recruiters. They're all good, not as good as Scott, but they're all good, and they will, they'll find us somebody else. This guy or gal worked over here and they grew this, so bring them in. It's a total revolving door, and it's on both sides. The pressure to grow at all costs, as well as the pressure to grow at all costs causes the person who's probably being pushed out. They're actively being pushed out of the business while they get 50 recruiting calls a week. From so it's like, I don't care. I'll just go get another one. They jump from one to one.
I just don't see. I can agree with that in theory. I just don't see that in reality. I'm not. I mean, maybe you do, Ryan, because you talk to more companies.
You don't see that in reality?
I don't know. I see people getting pushed out. I don't see the 18-month cycle being because the leader's getting a ton of recruiting calls.
Oh, I don't agree. I'm with Ryan on this one. Let me side with Ryan a little bit.
Think about it like this too. Think about it like this though. The 18 months, it's you get in there 18 months and it's the rocket ship is kind of, maybe one of the burners is kind of fizzing out a little bit, right? And then there's the next, so I was fortunate. You asked how did I last that? Well, first of all, when I got the VP, we were like maybe 2.5 years pre-IPO. So we kind of had that coming up. We did the IPO, and then I stayed 4 years after the IPO. So I kind of had that thing going where it's like, the timing worked out really well, right? I didn't, and I sat through some hard times with our founders and that sort of thing. So, I think, and Richard, are you saying you don't think recruiters are calling, or you don't think?
No. I think it has more to do with founders and VCs pushing to grow at all costs, way more than it has to do with the VP of sales or deciding they're getting recruiting calls.
Yeah, it has more to do with it. But let me give you a story or an analogy here, because it does play a little bit of a part, right? Like, we all know that narrative. So when day one, when I show up, I'm like, these motherfuckers are fitting to fire me in 18 months already. So I'm already subconsciously worried about it. And I'm looking for a parachute soft landing somewhere at all times, because I got to cover my backside.
Yeah.
All right. So when somebody calls me, I'm taking the phone call because I don't know what's going on in Richard's head. You know, Richard might have heard from the board today that my 92% growth was terrible and that I'm a failure because I took you from 2.5 million ARR last year to 4.9 million ARR, and I didn't get to 5, and we didn't double. And oops, we didn't go from 40 million to 80 million this year. Get that guy Ryan out of there. So the narrative is in your head. So there's a bit of paranoia there. I think that contributes to this, like, looking around and trying to make sure that you're taken care of.
But do they leave though? I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but do they leave or do they wait till they're forced out?
Well, you leave if, to Ryan's point, you leave if somebody waves a couple extra nickels your way that are shiny, or gives you a bigger title, right? Would you rather be the one to leave early or wait to get shown the door?
Well, it depends on how your compensation plan is written, right? If there's
that's what we both just said, though.
But it's really, you know, it's about the equity though too, right? I mean, it's about that, like, you know, and you see after 18 months, you know, right? Okay, where are we at? You know, what's possible here? And then part of that cycle is the shiny nickels that they waved in front. It's like, all right, well, this is the real rocket ship. I'm going to switch over to this rocket ship. But Richard, I agree with you that, you know, there's probably more to do with you getting pushed out, but I think that people don't consider the other side of it as well, which is what Scott was just eloquently just, you know.
I agree with you. I definitely agree with the fact that I don't think leadership realizes that, yes, they can push us out in 18 months, but it's not like, I think we end up looking better later when we look back on it. At least that's been my experience, because the leadership goes and hires whoever the board says to hire, but they don't know how to hire somebody like that anyway. So they end up fucking that up. And then it's, they're not going to come crawling back to me, but you know what it's like.
But here's the thing about that, Richard. I learned this lesson. Like, that's an ego statement. That is me looking back and thinking, oh, I'm super valuable. Like, they fucked it all up. And I felt that way multiple times, but in reality, that murdered my wallet and murdered my bank account. I watched a company lose half of its value after I left. And for the first 6 to 12 months of me being gone, I had a little bit of pride that they were struggling without me. And I'm like, they should have treated me better, whatever. But then, the company ends up selling, and I'm like, oh, wow, I'm an idiot and a total asshole, and my ego was in the way. And I lost hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million or more, because of that line of thinking. So I tried not to think that way. Now.
So then, let's say it's 18 months later. Are you saying you're getting pushed out the door? Are you suggesting that leaders like yourself should find ways to still be supportive to that organization, so that valuation doesn't go down as it relates to the stock?
Yes, if you have a vested interest that is significant, yes, you should. And I'll do you one better. If you can, you should insulate yourself by almost planting your replacement into the org while you're going to be potentially transitioning out. Like, get other people interested and excited around you, so when you're gone, it's in good hands. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah. So ego is a great way to put it, because I used to tell, especially junior managers, right? Which is like, man, if I leave, this place is screwed. It's going to go down in flames. And the same with the manager. If I'm out, like, no. A good manager, if they leave or they're out for a month, their team keeps humming and humming and humming, because they've built a process, they built a system, they built a scalable engine that can contribute and deliver results without you sitting at your desk, without you being there to pull every string. So yes, like if you leave or forced out, whatever, and the place just goes to shit, then you maybe didn't do the job that you needed to do, and maybe you weren't as good as you thought you were, sort of thing. Like, because it really shouldn't happen that way. Like, it shouldn't, now longer term, of course, if you're the man and you get pushed out, then okay, maybe things will start to slide eventually because of your skill set and your acumen. But I agree with you, Scott, for sure, that it's an ego thing. And as you get a little further along in your careers, then you start to realize that, right? I'm looking to, like, my whole goal is like, how can I spend less time in the weeds and more time, pulling things up, and
well, hopefully through this conversation, there's some people who are going through this or way more junior than us, who don't have to make the same mistake I did and the same mistake that, you know, you're kind of talking about, Ryan, and they can do things the right way and get mature faster than an immature guy like me did. This has been great. The last section of this has been awesome. Anytime we get into like an argument between the guest and me and Richard, we're all here for it. Kudos for firing us up. And we want to thank Vidyard and Gong and Lead 411 once again for their help and support. How can we help you, Ryan? Is there anything, you know, we can do? Any questions you have for us? Want to tell us something else that you're passionate about? This is your time.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, like I said earlier, I'm just really passionate about enabling salespeople to succeed in their careers. It's provided me with a successful career over the last 20 years, and it can do that for a lot of people. Unfortunately, I see a lot of people that struggle with whether it's getting the right job, the right leadership, the right product, just not being in the right fit. And as well as just sales organizations mismanaging an environment that they should be doing a better job managing. And so we want to shine a light on everything and just drive transparency. So first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys. Agreed, it was enjoyable. I like the debate as well. Happy to debate more on those topics. But I think in terms of what can you do to help me, I think this has been great. Anytime that users are aware of what we're doing, they love it. And so just, you know, that's what we're all focused on right now at RepVue, is just exposure. And I try, and some of the stuff we talked about here, I give back on LinkedIn with my posts. They're not self-promotional posts on my LinkedIn page. I just post stuff I've learned over the years, and hopefully people get value out of that. So go check it out. And anybody can connect with me. I know there's, I think, a pretty high limit. I haven't reached that limit yet. And anybody can ping me on LinkedIn as well. I will respond. You know, I am very accessible. I have questions. People ping me every day with questions about sales and their career. I'm happy to do that as well. But this has been great. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm sure we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Awesome. We appreciate it, man. It was good. This was fun because we just got introduced about a week and a half ago, and I was like, okay, Scott, we got to get this guy on. So Ryan, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you the last couple of weeks and have several conversations, not just this one, but some offline ones. But thank you so much, man. And we hope you have a happy, merry everything and a good end of your year.
Yeah. You guys do as well.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Yep.